So you need to sort of think, how does your book, how does your activism, how does my conversation with you about activism sort of pertain over the long haul in America now that's sort of dominated by corporate power, media power that's consolidated with corporate power. If we end this war, there's going to be other things we need to do. And
right.
And, what's consistently been interesting for me and what has been the paradox of this project and why I'm making it video too is that, basically it looks to me more and more like you do have to enter the belly of that beast to talk to the beast.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how you feel about that. And I talked to you about it last time, but it's sort of like you can be a grassroots activist. You can stand on a corner with 100 people fighting for Cindy Sheehan, but you're going to make your work becomes so much more meaningful in this society
mm-hmm.
when you reach a certain level of
mm-hmm.
mainstream prominence, which was not true about activism 20 years ago. You didn't have to
mm-hmm.
write for Mother Jones to
mm-hmm.
feel like you were. And you felt like it when you were a grassroots activist.
Mm-hmm.
I know you felt
mm-hmm.
effective.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like, that contradiction is very alive for me.
Mm-hmm.
And whether normal people can feel like they do anything. Because I don't feel like I did anything to stop the war by standing out there. I felt like I did something for my own spirits. Really.
I think your own spirits is important, but yes, you did do something to stop the war. I mean, that's the thing. It's losing the having to have the immediate gratification. So the majority of people didn't come to oppose the war just because one day they woke up. It was a million actions, including seeing 100 people, every weekend, holding that vigil that, made them realize that other people opposed the war and share those feelings, that opened up the door to a conversation while they were in the car with their, husband, that, those vigils, I think, are critically important. And I think if we had neighborhood vigils every Saturday, as long as the war goes on, which do happen, in lots of places, I think that's a very powerful statement for people in their communities to see. I think you did take a step towards stopping the war. And your own spirit is important.
I know, and that's why I went. I mean,
yeah.
I'm perfectly happy with what I got, but I think, I also think was really upsetting to Americans and people all over the world that we demonstrated in such large numbers, and the people that needed to listen didn't listen, and the war started anyway, and our politicians, even Democratic politicians, even left politicians, voted for the war knowing better. I mean, that our voice wasn't being heard. So when you stand at 100 people in a corner, you're like, well, no one's listening to this, because they didn't listen to 15 million people or a billion people.
Yes, they did. The only thing we can do is compare this war to other wars and how it is moving and progressing compared to other wars. The most important feature, lots of people argue that the Vietnam War was brought to an end, more than any other reason simply because of the draft, that so many people, were being drafted, and that the soldiers, wouldn't fight. The soldiers are retaliating against this war, and they are, I think, being able to do that because there is a community within which they can retaliate with,
mm-hmm.
and a sense that they know that 15 million people protested against the war. It doesn't necessarily have to have, it won't have an A-B effect.
But I'll tell you, the thing it's like when I talk to you, you bolster my spirits. And again, I'm not your average person. I'm like an intellectual leftist.
I know.
And the spirit, the spirit in this society is deadening an affirmative feeling for people on the left, and you carry it, but it is not. It is not traveling from you out to the rest of us. So that it's like a little pill for me when I talk to you. Otherwise, the rest of the society is consistently telling me, that I'm ludicrous, that I'm too far off the map, that there's no room to talk about the things I talk about the way I want to talk about them, And so I think that may be what you can do when you become famous, is be that little pep pill for people, because somebody needs to be that. Yeah. And tell us that I mean, really, because that's what it does for me. I've been an activist my whole life. It just feels like, right now you're an activist in a padded cell where no one hears it, where no one sees it, where it has no effect. It's just like, into jello. And that's not what I felt about other times.
There's never been a TV series about an activist. There's been a million TV series about doctors and lawyers.
Right.
And even when I unsolicited wrote a story idea for the West Wing where they could bring in anti-globalization activists into the story, but
didn't do it.
All right. Listen, I'm going to end, unless you want to say something else.
No.
Okay, so we'll check in with you in a bit.